The whole thing about pricing is that you need to understand which of these models are best for you. What we like our practice owners to understand is that they need to create the experience. They need to create the model that is going to support the highest possible price because they're able to communicate that value.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we give you the exact tactics, strategies, and mindsets you need to fulfill your destiny by helping thousands of people in your community and dominating your market and your life. I'm one of your hosts, Rory Morgan. I'm here along with Jennifer Gligoric and Tracey Sundkvist. And by the end of today's episode, you will understand the difference between running ads versus actually having a real marketing strategy. So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that you're not a clinic owner right now. You are starting an airline back in the 1980s, right? And you've been in the airline industry and you're thinking, hey, I want to start my own airline, and you've had some success and you have an idea to start this airline. So you kind of look around, you've got a limited budget. You're only going to be able to afford a couple planes. You've got to figure out, how do I actually build a successful airline when I'm competing against these giants like Delta and United and, you name it, whatever other, Emirates and all these companies that are out there. How do I go out here and compete against them? And what you want to do is you're going to go look at how they're doing business. And you're going to see that they are all following the exact same business model. Every one of them, they have this hub and spoke model, right? They have first class, they have coach, right? So, if you pay a bunch of extra money, you get to sit up front by yourself and have this amazing service. If they serve meals on the flights, right? And so you kind of, you fly from, you're going to have a hub in Chicago or Denver or something like that. And, if you want to fly from, Northern California to, Arizona, you're going to have a connecting flight through Denver. And it really sort of is somewhat inconvenient, right? But this is what everybody is doing. And this company called Southwest Airlines comes along and they say, wait a minute, what if we can identify a portion of the market that isn't being served? What if we could do this a little bit more like if we just didn't do hub and spoke? What if we just identified places that lots of people want to travel, but there aren't direct flights, right? And so they identify a few routes to start with, where it's just one way, go directly to the destination that you want, so it's much quicker. We get rid of the hassle of basically trying to find your seat and all that sort of stuff. And so we do open seating so that these people are much more concerned with hey, I just want to get there, right? So we're going to sell it in a different way. We're going to sell to a different person, right? They also come up with the idea of you're only making money when your plane is flying. And they look at what these other companies are doing, and they're spending tons and tons of time in between flights. They have a lot more maintenance because they have 5, 6, 7 different size jets, right? And they look at it and they say, well, if we just have one jet that we use for all of our flights, all of our maintenance will be easier, right? And they come up with this concept of wheels off the ground, because unless our planes are flying, we're not actually making money. And so they simplify it and they do that, right? They don't offer meals. They just do snacks on the flight. Right. So they come up with all of these ways of doing business differently, identifying a different, unique customer and saying, we are going to offer the best possible service that meets their needs and gives them what they want and they will be willing to pay for. So that is an example of actually doing marketing strategy rather than just saying, well, what's working for other people, I'll just copy that. that's what we find so often in the clinical space is, if you compare that to what most people say when they're like, oh, I'm going to do marketing, they're just going to say something more like, hey, I want to run digital ads, or I need a marketer to find me new patients, rather than actually sitting down and saying, well, who is my customer going to be? Who am I going to serve and who am I not going to serve? What am I going to be about? How am I going to differentiate? How am I going to make myself unique in the marketplace so that I'm a category of one? Right.
I wanted to bring up that when we're dealing, especially with clinic owners, the idea is not to differentiate. And which is crazy. Like, what's this other person doing? It's so much about copying everyone else rather than differentiating yourself as being different. And then when all you're doing is copying, you become a commodity. Mm-hmm. Then if you're just copying, the only thing you really have difference in price. And when your only difference in price is a complete race to the bottom.
That's right.
And you're never going to make a penny doing that. And you're probably not going to give a good service, and your clients are going to be happy and your patients are going to be happy. It's a race to the bottom in all areas.
Yep.
Yeah, I think trying to operate any business without a marketing strategy is kind of like driving a Ferrari without a steering wheel. You're going to get somewhere very, very fast, but it's unlikely that you're going to like where you get to. And this is just because you have no control. You have no control over where you're going if you don't focus on the steering. So we hear all the time that you need to work smarter, not harder. Now, the strategy is what allows you to do that, because it tells you exactly what you need to focus on so that you can get the best results, rather than just hoping that things work and then get stuck in firefighting mode and just constantly addressing the problems that come up because you actually don't have a plan.
And a marketing strategy there's several components to that. We're going to talk about how to get to the point to where you can have an actual marketing strategy for your business. Before you get to that, there's the concepts, what we call the marketing mix, the 5 Ps. I know Rory's going to love getting into this. That really delves into what you need to figure out before you can get to the actual marketing strategy. Rory, can you talk about that?
Yeah. And I want to touch on something, Tracey. You said everybody wants to work smarter, not harder. Like, when you said that, it just kind of made me think of like, okay, but it's still work, right? Like, working smart is still work. So you have to put in the work. And that's the cool thing about working smart, is that you can do this work, this smart work, but you have to do it. And then that can make everything else easier, right? But if you don't do the smart work, you don't do a strategy, you don't figure out how to differentiate yourself, you don't spend the hours that are required to think through what your business model is going to be, then you just go to a marketer and say, hey, just run me some stuff that you ran for somebody else. Just if it worked for them, it should work for me, right? And that's what you do. Well, yeah, you're just spinning your wheels at that point, right?
Yeah, that's hope smarter, don't hope harder.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the thinking or work.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you still have to do the work. You have to do the smart work. Smarter doesn't, like, I think people kind of think smarter, not harder. What they're actually saying is easier, not harder, right? And no, yeah, you still have to do the work of working smart.
ChatGPT can do your marketing strategy, but that isn't going to help you.
Yep. ChatGPT is really good at putting some stuff out there, right? Like it comes up with stuff, but like the thinking behind it isn't there, right? So that's our jobs as human beings to do that work. So
yeah, the robot overlords may not want your business to be the way you want your business. So you have to tell them, and then they'll go. You have to have the competency before you go to ChatGPT. It doesn't do the thinking for you.
Yeah. Yep. It can save you a ton of time, because you can tell them, this is how I differentiate myself. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do, how I want to be different from the other businesses. This is what my pricing is going to be like. And you can give them that information, and it can write you a marketing strategy in 30 seconds. But you have to do the thinking part yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to get from ChatGPT a copy of the aggregate average of all the other practices out there. Yeah, so let's jump into this concept. The concept that we want to introduce here is called the 5 Ps of marketing. Another name for it would be the marketing mix. And the marketing mix is basically, this is like something that you would learn if you went and got a marketing degree. Now, this isn't something, you don't just write out what the 5 Ps are and then all of a sudden you have a marketing strategy. What these are the elements that you would need to think about to understand what is my strategy? Like, who am I serving? Who are my clients? Who are not my clients? Where's my price going to be? And why do I want my price to be that? What types of promotion am I going to do? And what types of promotion am I going to avoid? It's these things that you want to think through to get clear on how you're going to place yourself in the market. So the 5 Ps that we have are product, place or placement, price, people, and promotion. So what you want to be doing right now, by the way, this is one of those episodes you're going to want to take notes and you're going to want to write down ideas as we're going through this. But let's start breaking down each one of these 5 Ps. So the first one is product, right? So if we take product, it comes down to what are we actually selling, right? So that might be, okay, you might literally be selling Botox injections. You might literally be selling chiropractic adjustments. You might be selling shockwave treatments, right? That might be the actual service that you are offering. But what you can do from there is you can then think about that deeper. So you can be like, okay, what is the appearance going to be? So that might be, okay, in our office, because people have to come into the office, how does it appear? Like, is it modern and fresh and light and bright? Is it more of a rustic feel, right? Like, that's going to affect the vibe that you have. Are we playing rock and roll music? Are we playing pop music? Are we not playing music at all? That's actually part of the product when you have a service business, because they're coming in and they're interacting with your business in your place of business. Another thing you might want to think about is there like a warranty or a guarantee? What's the quality? Right? Are we selling it more of like a low price, lower quality? How do we package this up? We've talked in previous episodes about selling a result or an outcome rather than selling a service, right? Or a treatment. Well, if we are selling something that is pain relief related, we might, what people are actually buying might be a pain-free life. And so instead of selling treatments and services, what we might be doing is we might be packaging up 3 or 5 different services into a package that we might call, the 8-week challenge or something like that. And so what you now have with the 8-week challenge is something that's been packaged very unique compared to 34 chiropractic visits and 12 shockwave treatments and, some decompression or something.
Yeah, I just want to pop in here. So when you're talking about product, it's the customers need to understand the features and the advantages and the benefits. What are the wants and needs of the customers? So when you're thinking about, well, we have this machine and this is everything the machine does, the machine can do this. When you think about the product, you need to think about what are the features, the advantages, and the benefits to the customer. That is part of this thought because it's their wants and needs. So put that into that. That is part of the product. When you're figuring all this out, the functionality and the appearance and the warranty and the quality and all that packaging, it has to be dialed down to the wants and needs of the customer. What are the benefits for them? What's in it for them? And in all of these P's, the what's in it for them is going to be a very important question you're going to want to ask yourself about your product or your service.
Also, just want to jump in when you're speaking about product, even now when we speak to our business owners, they're selling high-end offers, so they're selling big ticket offers, but when you ask them, what is it? What are you selling? They're still going to break it down to it's so many visits, and then it's so many visits, and then it's so many visits. But when you position it by visit, it gives the potential patient the opportunity to say, well, if I'm buying visits, then I just want to see where else I can buy visits that are maybe cheaper. So the product is all about positioning something different or unique so that they can't go and compare it to someone else. So that is what the productization is all about. It's about packaging something in a way that you can't compare it to something else.
Yep, 100%. So the next P I want to think about would be people. So there's two sides to this. People is like, what are the people we're going after? What are our target market? But also it's our own people. And how are we coming across? So you think about like, what's the attitude of our people? A good way of envisioning this is back to that Southwest Airlines example. The average, Delta, United, whatever other airline, typically it's a little bit more stuffy of an environment, right? Like they're more proper. I guess you could think of it as just sort of like more of an upper crust type etiquette. Whereas Southwest really deliberately said, we want our people to be funny and have a lot of personality. Their employees are encouraged when they're doing the safety, they get on the intercom and they're doing the safety demonstration. They're literally encouraged to make jokes and make it funny and be entertaining, right? So it's a much different feel. And if you've ever been on a Southwest flight, occasionally you get someone that's legitimately like, it's like a stand-up routine when they're doing that, when they're doing that safety protocol thing that they're required to do. It's hilarious. And that's part of your people strategy, right? Customer service, right? Is it going to be just like free returns, no questions asked, whatever you want? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. What's the appearance going to be? Are you going to have suits and ties? Are they going to be allowed to wear whatever they want? Very casual. All of these things are going to have a massive effect on how your market views you, right? If you're going after, for example, like, you want to go after these $1 million, like every home is multi-million dollars in these neighborhoods, and that's where you're putting your clinic, and you want these types of clients, there's going to be a specific expectation that they have from the employees of your business that is going to be different than the expectation of people who are making $50K a year.
Yeah,
right?
those people are going to have to be highly polished. Highly polished. They're going to have incredible vocabularies. They're going to be very professional, very, very witty, light on their feet. Light, when they speak, not like me right now. But yeah, you want to think like even in fast food, there are companies that have the perception, how the public perceives the company and perceives their staff. If you wanted to say in fast food, where are you going to get the friendliest staff? Automatically, there's a couple of places. Chick-fil-A, those staff will bend over backwards for you. They are so nice. Here in Texas, we have Whataburger. And generally, when you go to a Whataburger, they are super friendly, like anything you need. They even spend extra money on those little bullhorns that you have to talk into. And if it's not working, their company policy is to send someone outside. It doesn't matter how hot it is that day. They have these special umbrellas. They strap them on the back and they will take your order because it's not working, because they want to make sure you hear them. And so automatically, when you think, well, really friendly fast food staff, most other places you think, not so much. But in those places, they've invested in this part of their strategy.
Yep. Another really good example. So I don't know if there's a few of these restaurants. I don't think it's a huge chain, but Dick's Last Resort.
Oh, yeah.
Food is terrible, really crappy food. But like this business does really well. People love to go to this restaurant, and the waiters and waitresses, I guess we call them servers now in today's day and age. They are supposed to insult everyone, make fun of you. They put the dunce cap on you. They're drawing penises on, it's like they're completely inappropriate.
Mean. They're mean spirited. And I don't know why people like it. See, I would never go there because I would cry. I just have no personality for that. I would cry, even though I know that that's their job and everything. I'm just like so super sensitive. But there are people who love it. They just love to get roasted.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a strategy, right? It's not that there's
Yep.
it's not like everybody always defaults to like this concept for their people is like, we treat our patients like family. We go above and beyond. We love our patients. Like, okay, how? How are you doing what Southwest did compared to United Airlines? Right? How are you actually doing that? And the reality is if that's all you can come up with is we treat our patients like family, what that probably means is we treat our patients exactly the same as everyone else treats their patients because that's what everyone says.
So they don't pitch up for Thanksgiving. They don't send birthday cards. They forget stuff and then call 2 weeks later and, oh, you missed your appointment, but we're charging you anyway. Let's rather not treat them like family. Let's treat them better than family.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people with dysfunction in their family.
That's true. That's true. So let's go next to price, right? So where you price your product is going to have a big effect on who wants to buy it. Right. So that's obviously what's the actual selling price? Like what's the MSRP, so to speak, right? But are you going to offer discounts? How much are the discounts going to be? Are you going to offer payment arrangements? Are you going to offer credit? Are you going to offer price matching, right? Like Walmart, lowest price guarantee. That's not right or wrong for any type of business. It's just making a decision on what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think the important thing here, Rory, I keep thinking about there are different pricing strategies depending on what kind of business you have and how you want to come across. So you can be a toilet paper manufacturer and you can have 4 different strategies. So you can want to be the cheapest, in which case you're going to have to make, can I say, a shit ton of toilet paper that you can actually make money. Or you can say that we have the finest luxury toilet paper that's made with handcrafted silk from Himalayan geese or whatever, and you can sell it at like $1 billion for a single roll.
Himalayan geese.
And then you can say, well, do you know what? This whole toilet paper market is so damn saturated. We need to do something else. And then you can come up with the strawberry scented toilet paper for people who want to, whatever. But then it's about novelty, and even novelty, it can be poor quality, but because it's novelty, people will pay.
Totally.
The whole thing about pricing is that you need to understand which of these models are best for you. What we like our practice owners to understand is that they need to create the experience. They need to create the model that is going to support the highest possible price because they're able to communicate that value. So as soon as you can communicate, this is something of value. This isn't for everybody. I'm not for the people who are only on Medicaid and actually can't afford it. Yes, you want to help people, but there's other businesses, there's other practices that are in a position to do that. We take care of, and then define your people.
Yep. And one final note on pricing, when you talk about like why you would want to go more expensive versus less expensive. Number one, everybody wants to work smarter, not harder, right? So fewer patients for more money. That sounds like smarter, not harder to me. Number two, though, the clients themselves, people who demand the lowest prices are also the most demanding customers. So you actually don't have to work as hard for people who pay more money. You don't have to chase them down to get their credit card when their credit card gets declined. You don't it's way easier with those folks. And so it's just something to be thinking about. So let's talk about place or placement. This is going to have to do with like your ability to position yourself in the market. So number one is literally your location, right? How convenient are you, right? Again, just to give you the idea that there's different ways of doing this. There's really cool, these really cool speakeasies that exist now in some of these bigger cities, right? Where there is no sign for this bar where you can you can go to this bar and just walk in the door and have a drink. Like you have to get an invite and you have to know how to knock on the door, and someone like slides the thing open and you have to have like a password to get in, and then you get led down the stairs, and then there's this really cool environment downstairs, right? So that comes across as like, wow, that's very inconvenient. But man, is it a cool experience, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in the 1920s during Prohibition and I'm going to this speakeasy, and it takes you back in time. And so people are willing to do that and they love it. And they're paying probably 4 times more for their drinks because of that, right? So, there's different ways of approaching this. You just have to think through, like, how am I positioning myself? So location, right? Are you going to have multiple service levels? Do you have like a high, medium, low, or is it high level only? These are just decisions that you have to make. And we won't go into when is one appropriate or when is another appropriate, but you just have to understand there's a reason to have high, medium, and low. And there's a reason to have only high end or only low end. And you have to understand what you're doing with your marketing strategy, right?
It's so funny, Rory, when you talk about place, because I think of Ray Kroc, and I think of when he launched, the strategy wasn't particularly focused around making the best burgers. It was about real estate. Their strategy worked because they were in front of people. It was easy. It was convenient. And they strategically chose where they were going to position themselves so that they made it so easy that people just wouldn't say no. And that's how they took over the globe. I mean, anywhere you go, it's McDonald's and Starbucks, right?
Yeah. Golden Arches.
I had no idea until my grandmother told me about it, that how people used to get quote unquote fast food. You would bring your own plates and your own stuff, and you would take it in they would give it to you and make it, and you'd give like your pot or whatever, and they would put it in there. And I didn't realize it was like that for a while. And she was like, yeah, like chicken or different things like that. And she goes, I remember Kentucky Fried Chicken, the whole idea that I wouldn't have to lug these pots to go over there. And I was like, wow. But she was 104. So this is a very, very long time ago. But yeah.
That's cool. I mean, there's some wisdom in that, right? A little less trash all over the place.
More eco-friendly.
Yeah.
I can't help but I was seeing eco-friendly brands, but then they will wrap their eco-friendly straw, which you put it in and it gets soggy and it just, it's this awful thing, but they wrap it in plastic. It's got a plastic wrapper for an eco straw.
I've not spoken to a single person that appreciates those eco-friendly straws yet. Like they are.
But that is just peak our age right now.
Yeah.
To wrap the eco-friendly mush straw in plastic.
Yeah. And if you have kids, so let's not forget this part. You're going to need about 5 straws per kid because they ruin them so fast. And so we're getting 5 times the amount of trash in the environment with that. Okay, so let's go into promotion. This is what people usually start with. They're like, oh, let's run Facebook ads. Let's run Instagram ads, TikTok ads, right? Well, there's a lot of options in promotion. For example, we just talked about paid advertising, paid digital ads, but there's paid direct mail, right? Direct mail's awesome, and a lot of people overlook it, but you can be so hyper-targeted with direct mail. There's sponsorships. Is there big podcasts in your area that, or other big, big events that you could sponsor and be a part of and be allowed to speak at? PR, right? So being a podcast guest on other podcasts, getting media coverage, being on TV, on the local news stations. Actually, this is another part of actually developing what your message is, who you're speaking to, what you're saying, right? How you're saying it. So all of these things are things that need to be considered. And most people only think about promotion, and they really only think about one aspect of promotion when they're thinking, my marketing strategy. And the reality is everything you do in your business is a marketing function. And so you've got to think through all of this stuff.
We will put other examples of this in our school, and Rory will tell you about that. It's a free resource. You're going to get tons of great tools and resources for you if you're listening to this podcast, because we love giving free stuff because we love you guys.
So that pretty much wraps up the marketing mix and the 5 Ps. And what I hope you have is an understanding of like what are the elements you need to be thinking about when you approach your marketplace and you want to offer the best possible service and you want to make yourself a category of one instead of just copying other people. These are the things you need to think through. In the next episode, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take you through a simplified actual marketing strategy document where you can actually document this stuff out. You can write out who your customer is and what you're going to promote and what your price is going to be and all those kinds of things and really define your strategy. So stay tuned for the next episode. And what I also want to remind you is you have a duty to do if you're listening to this podcast for free. You're not paying money, but you do have to refer this to a friend. So pull up your email right now, send them a link to this podcast and say, hey, friend, I thought of you. You need to listen to the Super Clinic Project podcast because there is some amazing information in there. So go ahead and share that with your friends and we'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.